So today is a Rikers Island story. Maybe it comes in a little bit on the side of horror, but it's actually a true story. Something that did happen. I found a friend of mine suspended in his cell and unalive. And it's obviously a pretty traumatic experience for me and the whole block, really. Yeah, it was a pretty overwhelming experience. The year was 2006, Rikers Island, C-74. No, excuse me, it was C-73. I was fighting a case. Stayed over in that unit. I was in that unit for about... I was in a couple of units before I got to that one. It was a good unit, so there was some work to get there, and I stayed there for about 9 months in that unit, probably about a year and change on the island at that time, dealing with a case in the criminal courts. Ray was actually a really cool guy and the last person you would expect that out of. But before we get into that, subscribers now, and I'm ecstatic about that. I know in social media land, that's not considered a whole lot of subscribers, but I tell you what, here on YouTube, it's pretty monumental accomplishment, especially when you start off with a small independent channel. So, you know, it's a pretty big deal for me because I take every one of my subscribers as like a very, very, it's a very, intimate thing to me when someone thinks enough about my content to hit the like and subscribe button and help get this channel a little bit bigger. Every subscriber counts, and we are making serious inroads here, and I'm going to keep bringing you this kind of hard-hitting content, deep dives on taboo subjects that the public needs to be aware of, so at least that way they can make informed decisions. And that's what this program is all about, SHU Outdoors. And yeah, we really appreciate all of our subscribers, and we really would appreciate if you think about subscribing and give us a big thumbs up. Yeah, let's get back into it. Yeah, so Ray was really the last person you would expect to do that. I think he was looking at probably a sentence of about 8 1/3 to 25 years. And I think he had maybe family problems that he kept pretty personal. He worked in the mess hall, and he would usually come back from, for lack of a better word, work, and he'd have coffee and food, and it just so happened him and I hit it off. And when he would come back, he'd usually get on the phone and then go to the back in the cell, and I'd go back there and we'd smoke cigarettes. At that time, now that I think about it, I don't think they banned smoking until, or maybe I was on the island with him in 2001. Maybe it wasn't 2006, but it was 2001 or 2006. And so the story is still true after that. I could have got those 2 years mixed up. But yeah, he would come back from the mess hall, and oftentimes me and him would be in the back. Now, he had a cell. I drew a little diagram here of C-74 in Rikers Island. So this right here, out here, would be the hallway, okay? Then they got a door they can open up here for one side of the unit, and then over here they would have an exact duplicate side, and you can see between them up here on the day room, there's glass and gates and stuff, and the officers can control them and let you go from side to side or come in here and go around and go out here or whatever, you know? So you got a gate here that leads into the unit. This is the day room, okay? And on this side of the hall, there's a couple of showers and a toilet. And then there's like a wall, and there's a phone on the outside of that wall, and there's a phone here. Then you got a couple of closets here, a closet here, and a closet back over here. This day room is big, and you got a TV right there, and it's usually in the same place in every unit. Old TV at the time. They might have a flat screen now, but at that time it was old box TV sitting on a wooden stand, and it was a whole lot better than nothing. Maybe 5 or 7 channels. Then you would walk down this hall. So there was a gate here and there was a gate here. Okay, there's a gate here that lets you into the unit, and then a door here that lets you into the hallway. Then a gate here, so the person over here can't just cross over there without the officer opening the gate. Way back here, it was like I would say early 70s architecture, because way back here was a big wall with different color bricks. All right, so when the sun was shining, it would be like a different colors in the hallway, like green, red, yellow, orange. Like the whole back wall right here, not in the cells, but on the back of the hallway, the whole wall was like in a big, clear, but different color glass bricks. So that's an important note. His cell was like right here, and there was bars, so you couldn't actually get to the wall, but it was right there and let all the sun in. That's kind of a little rundown of the island. C-73 is like this. C-74 is basically like this. C-95 is basically like this. C-76 is basically like this. OBCC and the Beacon are newer designs. And the hospital is it's an older design around this era, but it's designed different. It's more open bays. You know, because you're going to need to be in a hospital bed and stuff before they put you over there. So it was a little different from that. But I'd say, I don't know if this is the exact number of cells on either side. Might be 8 or 10 cells on each side. And they're all one-man cells. And, yeah. They lock you in your cell at night, lock you in your cell at count. But other than that, you're going to be out, be able to walk up and down this hallway, use the phone, take a shower, hang out in the day room. Chow comes, they pass it out, eat in the day room, or you can eat in your cell, you know. So that's kind of the rundown of C-73. And what happened was that TV, they would have bring a VCR in occasionally, and let's skip over this guy. Almost messed the whole show up, man. So he came in from work one night. The movie The Patriot was playing on TV, so everybody was in the TV room watching that movie. It was a relatively new release at the time. Maybe not new, but not that old, so everybody was still somewhat interested in it. And he came in, used the phone like normal. I hollered at him. He said, "Hey, man, I'm going to lay down." And then everybody was up here because the cells were open, so everybody was up here watching The Patriot. And you could still smoke at that time, so I'm saying it was 2001. And I needed some paper to write a letter before lockdown. So if he was asleep, I wasn't going to wake him up, but I didn't know if he was asleep yet. So I walked in, I walked down here, I went to the back to his cell. I saw him unsuspended, like, I want to be selective with my wording here, suspended from the light in his cell. His feet were touching the ground. He had basically, I guess, asphyxiated himself, went unconscious or whatever, and then the laws of physics with just a suspended object took his toll. I found him, and I didn't know if he was completely unalive when I found him, so the cell door was open. I went in there and picked him up and tried to take the noose off his neck because I didn't know if he was quote unquote unalive. The only reason why I took this extreme measure because he was a friend of mine. Otherwise, I'm sure I wouldn't have got involved in that. But you know, I thought it was a hope that maybe he was still alive and I could maybe resuscitate him. And I couldn't get the noose off his neck, so I'm lowered him back down gently. Went out to the hallway, called a guy. He came down there, saw what was happening. He thought about helping me for a minute, and he said, "Hey, man, we should, tell the CO, you know what I mean?" And I came to. I said, "Yeah, you're absolutely right." So that's what we did. But he was really the last type of guy you would expect that from. He never talked about anything like that. He didn't seem happy because he was in jail. I wouldn't say he was happy, but I wouldn't say he appeared to be overtly depressed or someone that you would classically think of being exposed to that type of thing. Ray was a Puerto Rican dude, into rock and roll and punk rock and all kind of stuff, and that's how we kind of got talking and hit it off. It's a pretty good brand. Lush. It's like a tropical fruit almost, but not too fruity. Pretty good stuff. Figured I'd give them a shout out. Maybe I can get my subscribers up. I'll start doing endorsements like this, trying to make a buck, so I can keep bringing you guys this hard-hitting, deep-diving content. But yes, Ray wasn't a, he didn't seem to have any of the classic markers for someone that you would think would or could do that to themselves. I was very surprised, you know what I mean? And again, the only reason why I took the extra measure of trying to get involved, because he was my friend and I cared about him, you know, as a friend. And I was like, well, if there's an opportunity, maybe I could save this guy. Should I do it or not? And my friendship for him kind of took over, and I did make the effort. It turned out to be fruitless, but that was the goal. Cops got involved. Special Internal Affairs came over, interviewed everybody in the block. You know, because the cell door, at that time, the officers were supposed to open the cells for 5 or 10 minutes every beginning of the hour. But they were up in the CO's bubble right here, which would be right here. So, you know, they can see everything, and then they can come out and do a round, come in here and look around and go back to the bubble. So they had left the cells open all night. And then everybody was like, yeah, the cells were open all night. They were cool, you know. And some COs do it, and then some COs are much more liberal with it at evening time especially. And I ain't going to say they necessarily did anything wrong, but maybe they could have caught it if they'd have been doing rounds. They just had the cell doors open, and they weren't doing rounds. And, I mean, so, yeah, they were lacking on their security, but you know, I think the dude probably had it in his mind anyway. So they ended up dragging Ray out basically like a sack of potatoes. I don't know what issues he was dealing with, and I don't really know if he intended to, you know. When I found him, I mean, he didn't have his pants undone, so it didn't seem like he was doing nothing autoerotic or anything weird. It seemed like he may have had an idea that he really, 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 really wanted to do that to himself, or he could have had second thoughts for all I know at the end. But the end result was that he was suspended from a sheet from the lighting in a cell. His feet were touching the floor. So I think he ended up asphyxiating himself, perhaps, and then the laws of gravity took over and finished the job. Yeah, but it was a pretty traumatic experience, you know, and especially it's one thing to, like, see that and you don't know the person, but, you know the person, and, you know, you got a friendship to a degree, you know. Smart thing to be would not even went in there and tried to help. I know being smart, but at the time, I like instance of like friendship and trying to look out for a homie took over, and I went in there and I tried to help. It didn't work out. Because, yeah, he was already, you know, the deed was done. By the time I went down to his cell, and my goal was to look in to see if he was awake or whatever, say, hey, Ray, you got 2 or 3 sheets of paper that I can get from you so I can write a letter tonight that I need to write. I got a stamp in the envelope. I just didn't have no paper. I'm sure I could have got it off someone else. He just needed, I hadn't seen him in an hour or two, maybe 2 or 3 hours. We had been down in the day room, or maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. Can't remember, but it was like hour and a half to 3 hours, somewhere in there, since he had been back there, quote unquote, laying down, and we had all been up there in the TV room. And I told some dudes that I was, because the movie was almost over, maybe 10 minutes, and I had seen it before, but everybody was still glued to it. And I told a couple of dudes I was hanging out with, hey man, I'm gonna go down here and see if Ray's still awake, because I knew he had a stack of paper. and he was my friend. So he would have gave me a few pieces, no problem. You know what I mean? So when I went down there, I looked in. I was suspecting to see him either sitting on his bunk or whatever. You know what I mean? And I looked, and it looked like he was standing. Like maybe he was standing because on Riker's Island at C-73, on the back of the wall, there's like a wall, I'm going to say about 60% up, and then it turns into a window. It covers the whole wall. It's like them spin out windows with the bars proxy in the window frame with a fence screen on it. You ain't getting through it. It's all, you got a lock and shit on it. So, but in the summer you could roll them out and get some fresh air, because other than a fan or two, there ain't no AC and on the island, okay, unless you're in the hospital or something. Maybe in the Springs there was AC. I'm not sure, but I know in the main units there ain't no AC for sure. So that's why I was there, and I thought he was leaning on the back of the wall, maybe listening to his radio. So I stepped like a half a foot inside the cell to get his attention, and just stepped in for a minute. Hey Ray, and then I realized, well, there was a sheet coming from the light fixture coming down. It took me a minute to register what I was seeing. That was wrapped around his neck, and he was suspended. But basically, still, his feet was touching the ground. And I couldn't see it clearly because it was the evening time, obviously. But later on, once they turned the lights on, because when they first turned the lights on, they didn't lock everybody down. So we went down there and told the CO, and he turned the law off. Now all the lights on are in the cell. They're down there, like we're kind of looking over their shoulders at it. He was a relatively light-skinned Puerto Rican guy, but by the time I looked in when the lights was on, when everybody was gathered around, he was like pretty dark. So he had been hanging there obviously for a while, I would imagine, rigor mortis or whatever's happening had happened to a degree. So he'd probably been hanging there, I don't know, maybe an hour before I stumbled across him inadvertently. Is that a horror story? Well, yeah, maybe, It's definitely horrific, but it's a true story, a horror story or not. It's definitely a 100% true story. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you will think about subscribing to SHU Outdoors, giving this video a thumbs up. Let's get this thing up and kind of like it. We can't do it without you, man, and thanks again for viewing. Peace.